Ableton have just announced that their beta of version 11 is live, and unless you've been living under a rock, you're going to be aware that some of the most requested features for years have shown up in there, namely the ability to use playlists and comp, and the ability to link tracks together. So in this video, I'm going to be exploring those and telling you what I think. Hi, my name's Damien Taylor. I'm a 6-times Grammy-nominated record producer, songwriter, mixer, engineer, all-around sonic collaborator. I work with artists to get the record that is in their head out into the world. If you have any questions about anything we're talking about today, feel free to drop in on my Twitch stream. I stream 3 times a week at twitch.tv/hereisdamien. There's a link below. Happy to chat about anything you want around music production or the specifics of this video. So let's kind of zoom out a little bit. Ableton Live have always been wonderful because they've employed this really beautiful, elegant, streamlined functionality in their designs. The capability of their programs are incredible, but I really love Live because they manage to cut out a lot of the extra menus, unnecessary steps, unnecessary tools, details which could be handy in a very specific use case but aren't really necessary. They really encourage you to think very clearly when you're making music. So what I was really curious to check out is with the new track linking, the new comping features, the new playlists, if it really worked and maintained this kind of ethos that's so important in Ableton Live. So why don't we dive in and we'll find out. Why don't we start off by talking about track linking? This would be the equivalent of in Pro Tools when you can group tracks together. I'm a long-time Pro Tools user, so that's been a really critical feature for me, and part of what has kind of meant that there's certain production processes that I couldn't do in Live previously. So if you don't quite know what we're talking about, if you see we've got all these different tracks here, they're part of a drum performance by Will Hatton. He did this for a track I made for Universal Audio. I'll link to a full stream I did where I talked with Universal Audio about that below. So it's a drum kit. We've got all these different microphones. And as you can see here, when I'm selecting a particular track or grabbing a track and moving it around, the whole drum kit doesn't move together. In version 10, Ableton did include this whole folder thing. So you could group tracks into a folder, and that meant that if you dragged on the folder, then you could, move stuff around together, but it was still a little bit more tricky and limited, so you could kind of grab stuff in the folder, but not quite the same as being able to manipulate the regions themselves. So this is how track linking works in version 10. You basically need to select all your tracks, just hit a right click on there and then go down to link tracks. And you'll see now that we have these little chain icons showing up on the right side of the channel here. So this now means that anytime you drag somewhere in the track, there you go. You can select a region, move them around, and all of those different tracks behave as one. There's a couple of small quirks to just be aware of here, not showstoppers at all. So let's say, for example, if we wanted to mute the whole drum track, see I'm clicking mute on the kick and only the kick is going, or I'm hitting solo, likewise only one channel at a time is doing that. So if we want those to behave together, you have to hover your mouse over that little linking icon, click it, and then it's selected all the tracks, and then you can do them all together. And then following on from this, if you jump over to the mixer view, I haven't actually seen a way to just single click on one of the tracks and select them all. So again, you're in the mixer, you can switch individual tracks off and on, do individual tracks volumes, but you'll need to manually select them all at the top there for them to all behave together. Or I think you can actually just still click on the track linking icon in the arrange view, and then that selection will carry over to the mixer. So maybe before the release version, the team at Live will include that little link in there somewhere. The other thing to know about linking is that it will also mean that those linked tracks will warp together as one. Let's jump to this view. This is very, very exciting news. I'm really looking forward to trying this out. I feel like I want to do a dedicated video on that. Please do let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that. I'd be particularly interested actually to do a deep dive into how it would work on drums, warping them in Live versus my kind of slicing workflow that I use in Pro Tools. I think it's going to be really fascinating to understand the differences. Okay, let's talk about the implementation of comping and playlists in Live 11 beta. The Ableton team have chosen to use the terminology of a content lane and a take lane. You're going to see more about this as the video unfolds, but it's an important little bit of terminology to bear in mind. It has some important kind of knock-on effects. Anyway, let's show you about comping. Let's dive in. Okay, Okay, there's 3 effective different ways that you can comp in Live. Why don't we hit Alt-Command-U, which is a new keyboard command. We'll pop open the take lanes here, and straight away you can see the take lanes are a little bit grayed out, whereas the main content lane is the kind of deeper, richer, full version of the color. So let's get through these comping modes. The first one, I actually really love this, is you can just select an area. You can use these up and down keyboard commands, and actually left and right will move things back and forth as well. But if you go up and down, you hit T, and then that will switch on that particular track, and you can now have a listen. Go down again, hit T. Again, down arrow T. And down arrow T. And let's check the original one while we're at it, actually. Okay, so I think this guy here, no, sorry, this one here is going to be my fave. And then once you've chosen the bit that you want, you can just hit return, and then that pops it up to the main content lane. If you hit T again, it'll take the track lane out of solo. And there you go. So that's the kind of up, down, arrow, return methodology. Let me show you a different method here. I'm going to hit undo. As you know, Live is very, very streamlined. They only have 2 tool modes. There's a main kind of grabber tool, and then if you hit Command B, it switches over to the pencil. So this is amazingly cool. You can literally just go around drawing on the different take lanes, and it'll go firing those up onto the content lane. Very, very, very fast if you know what you're doing, and I'll show you kind of a creative use of this one in a minute. All right, let's undo these guys. And then this is the final method. This one works really beautifully. You're on the main content lane, and if you're just playing by somewhere, let's say this fill up here. Let's see if we got a better one of those. So we'll select that region. We're going to just hold down Command, and then it's the same thing, up and down arrow, and you'll just hear a new take. Command down. So I think that's the one there. I think there's a little bug. Did you notice when we went from the previous mode over to that one that we lost this region over here? It's a little bit of a glitch there. I'll let the Ableton team know about that. And I don't know if anyone else picked up on this, but if we go and hit undo, I love this little feature. It goes back to the content track as it were before you started cycling through. So let me just show this to you again. We're going to hold down Command, scroll through a few takes, up and down, and we're going to go for that guy. So see how we did a whole bunch of key presses, but then if you hit undo, it just goes back to the content lane as before. This is great because you can basically just toggle between the take that you chose and how it was before. It's a really nice, elegant way to do A/B comparisons. Okay, so that's all well and good, me showing you how to comp stuff that's already in there, but I'm sure you'd like to know how it actually works stacking stuff up onto those take lanes. So I'm going to demonstrate this by doing a quick loop record on a very, very basic little MIDI loop. We'll be just throwing some stuff through my OB6 here and recording the output. Let's jump in. All right, so that's not winning any Grammys, but it'll do for our purposes. So you can see all those take lanes started getting stacked up when we were recording. Again, the ones that are being used are highlighted on the take lanes, and those same 3 editing modes still work just the same. So we can select a region, press T to hear that particular take lane, press up and down arrow and T again. And then hit return if we just want to throw those up to the top. Likewise, the pencil, actually let me hit T to take that one out of solo, as it were. The pencil still works, so we can just go around drawing in different grabs. And I'm sure you're probably a little bit like me thinking, oh, this whole ability to loop record synths and then just use that pencil tool to almost randomly fire chunks around has a lot of creative potential. And then, of course, if we collapse that, I believe that is Alt-Command-U, we can also do the selection on the content lane, hold down Command, and then up and down arrow to jump around between those. One thing as well that I totally love with this is, let's open this up again. If you wanted to do some more recording in another part of the song, it uses the empty take lanes. It doesn't then start new take lanes, so it just keeps it a little bit tighter. Let me show you what I mean. So in some workstations, those new lanes would have actually added on 3 more lanes to make those happen. So just very simple and helpful. One question I had when I was on the call actually showing these features is, do the take lanes follow any global edits? So for example, you've got a verse recorded and then you realize you need to like double the intro. So let me just show you this here. If I do Shift Command D, that's added in these extra 4 bars. And then if I open this up, you'll see the take lanes have followed those structural edits. So small detail, but very, very good to know that that's how the behavior works. This is actually probably a good point to start to talk about the difference between Pro Tools and Ableton Live take lane philosophies. All right. So here are a few key differences. We're going to jump straight back over here. Let's say we've made this beautiful comp and we just want to record another pass in the same spot, or we've done a comp and then we want to try a different comp. In Pro Tools, you could just press a key command, just duplicate that playlist, whereas in Live, you need to press Shift-Alt-T to make a new lane. You'll basically need to select the content of a whole lane and then drop it onto a new lane if you want to make any differences. So here what we're doing is we're just adjusting the comp a little bit if we wanted to then go and, fire this in here, that in there. Another way around this would be if you had that collapsed, you might choose instead, why don't I just duplicate literally the entire channel and then I'll do my new comp or new recording on the new one, which would mean that you could just then flip-flop back and forth between these 2 versions. So, I think that's fine on, single or small track number instruments or recordings, but if you're doing that on multi-track drums, it might get a little bit fiddly. Now, there's also a workflow that's used in more traditional engineering situations where there's a bit more of a drop-in philosophy where, you might get a full take down the track or you have an initial comp and then you decide that you want to go in and just drop in for specific words. There's some engineers that I've seen, what they like to do is each time you're going for a new drop-in, they'll duplicate the playlist. So that you wind up having like a full undo tree, and it's very easy, especially when you're doing drop-ins, to just go and find these earlier versions. So to clarify, let's say you've done a few takes and everyone's like, okay, take 5 is great. Let's just go and drop in for the second verse. So what you do is you grab take 5, duplicate it, drop in for that verse. Everyone's like, okay, that verse is great, but let's just hit the second line. So then you duplicate that again, drop in on the second line. It just means that your playlist will contain every single take and you'll have access to every region, even if you're not doing the loop record workflow. So Live is working really well for the kind of loop recording thing, but for the going and dropping in and punching into specific points while still having access to those earlier regions, it's not quite so dialed as of yet. Another point I just wanted to bring up is let's have a look at the drums here. Let's say you've got these open and you just wanted to listen to a whole other take in one part of the song. So you might just say like, okay, I just want to be listening to take lane 2 while I'm working on something else. So you've got these collapsed again, but then you'll see here the content lane is now grayed out. And again, if we play over here, you'll see that we can see waveform, but we're not hearing any sound. That's because the take lane is the one that's soloed, but when we fold it up, we don't hear it. So we'll hear it over here where it's playing, but we don't see it. Again, it's really not the end of the world. It's just worth being aware of. And again, it's this difference between content and take lane versus just selecting different playlists. All right, why don't we just review a few other notes that you might want to be aware of going into this. This first one is very, very simple. If you have a plugin on a track, for example, we have got a 16th note echo on here. Then when you are selecting lanes or soloing lanes, those will all still be played through the plugin. So that one's really not rocket science. Conversely, though, you cannot independently put plugins on individual take lanes. It's going to be the content track is where the plugins are. Everything else will go through that. Okay, then this next situation is a bit of an edge case, but while I was importing all of Will's drums, I found out about it. Let me show you this one. So, we've got a whole bunch of channels here where I want to import some drums. So I'm going to select the link icon, open them all up, have those over there. We're going to open up my Finder because these are in a whole different folder. So if we go in and grab like take 2, We'll drag these into the session. There you go. And as you'd expect, they're on their individual tracks. Now, again, there's no button to just immediately duplicate these to a normal playlist. If I was importing stuff into Pro Tools, I'd kind of import them onto the main track, hit duplicate, then drop the next ones on, hit duplicate again, off we go. In Live, again, we need to select all the links. Then we're going to hit Shift-Alt-T to open up new take lanes. Let's just make sure we can see what's going on here. Scroll those into view, and then we're going to grab another take here. All right. Again, we don't need that one. Now, when we drop them in, see how they don't automatically know, okay, we're putting these into a take lane. So they just go for the 8 adjacent tracks, rather than I'm dropping this onto a take lane, let's put all of these onto separate take lanes. So the way around that, you've got your take lane, you need to drag your content lane onto the take lane. Then you need to close your lanes, put in the next one, and then again, open them up so you can see it, make a new lane, drag these guys down onto a take lane, close it again, and then repeat it once more. We'll do it for this final pass. So it's, a few extra steps if you're recording multi-tracked performances from another source. And, I don't imagine that this is going to be a terribly common event for most people in Live, but just that behavior, it would be lovely if when you drop stuff onto a take lane, if it was multi-channel, then it would know everything's going onto their separate take lanes. Actually, no, we should try that really quickly, just in the full session itself. Let me pop this over. We'll have a quick look right now. We'll make these small. Let's make everything small. Actually, let's open up our other drum tracks here. Open those up there. Grab these ones here. Drag them up. Oh, goodness, this is... Drag them up here. And... Okay, now I'm even more confused. So see how these ones that we selected were from they're from content lanes that had the 2 take lanes in between them. So these have kind of just, it's like remembering the relationship between the tracks, but not where they were on content or take lanes. So I don't know if that's something that the Live team could figure out, or again, if it's just such a random edge case scenario that we'll get over it. So that's my kind of overview functionally of how things work. And as this is a beta, why don't we talk about some of the things that I'd love to see? First is I'd love to see an additional keyboard command or shortcut that just would duplicate the existing content lane and put it onto a take lane. There's already a keyboard shortcut for create a new take lane, so just one more modifier key, maybe adding in a control, and then it would copy that content lane onto a take lane. I think that would be super, super handy. Conversely, it would be really nice to have a way to send a selected take lane, send the entire channel up to the content lane. That one might be a little bit less critical, but it could be cool. And actually, why don't we just have a quick look at some of these take lane scenarios, because I really think just the navigation through here, if it was just that little bit slicker, could be a lot more fun. So one thing is, right, if we hit select, select track content, if we do that on a content lane, it selects literally all of the track content. This can be really handy. Let's say we're zoomed in here and you don't want to have to zoom out to the entirety of the song. I wish you could right click on a lane and select the entire content of that lane. You can't do the double or triple click in Live like you can in Pro Tools to select everything. And if we hit select all, it literally selects the entire session. When the take lanes are visible, I would love it if the select track content on the content lane would only select the content lane. When it was closed, if it selected all the take lanes as well, I think that would be totally cool. But I think having that little awareness of whether the take lanes are visible or not, and the selection being different would be very handy. One other thing I'd love to see is the ability to individually color take lanes, and then just like up here, we can assign a color to a track and then assign the track color to clips. I'd love to be able to do that within individual take lanes too. One other thing I'd love to see is a global keyboard shortcut to suspend all track linking, basically like a toggle. It could either be a shortcut or it could be perfectly added up the top here, just like, you can suspend automation, switch into different overdub modes. And why would you want this? So like at the moment, we've got our whole drum tracks are linked. This is great because we can edit stuff, fly everything around. It's all good. But one thing I love to do, particularly in drums, is rather than using gates, is I'll go into individual tom tracks and I will switch them off, mute the regions, and then do little fades out of the back of their hits. So let me just zoom in here. And you see, obviously at the moment, all the tracks are linked. So now we're unlinked. If I went through now, I can just individually select the tom track, switch them off in between hits, boom, boom, there we go and put in my fades. But it just means that when I want to then go and treat the whole drums as one big instrument again, just need to go through again, right click and link the tracks. Whereas if there's just a little thing to suspend that globally, I think that would be fantastic. Now, this ties into where the streamline stuff on live is working brilliantly and what I love, because in other workstations I've used, they've always had like a little track grouping window off to the left-hand side, or if you want to group a track, it brings up a menu and you tell it all the different ways that you want it to group. Obviously, there's a lot of power in that. For example, in Pro Tools, you can choose, well, all the sends are linked, the plugins are linked, but the editing isn't, the volumes are, the solos aren't. All that stuff is really, really useful. I think that avoiding that layer of complexity in live maintains that streamlined, elegant Ableton Live workflow. So I think that choice to not have an extra menu or an extra window or an extra thing that pops up is brilliant, and that's where just having that global toggle off and on would work really well, because then, you might have a whole ton of different link tracks and you're just in one. You want to edit one thing individually, globally untoggle them, and then just switch it back on when you're done. That saves you having to have that whole window, saves that whole layer of complexity. All right, what else do I love? That loop recording function is beautiful. It works really elegantly. I really love the way you have those 3 different comping modes. They're not even really different modes. It's just different ways you can get the same result, or you can use slightly different techniques based on what you're thinking at a particular time. I'm very, very excited about the linked warping. And again, as mentioned, please let me know if you want to see me do a video on that. I'm really keen to actually do some testing about the results that I get in Ableton Live with multi-track drums versus doing that in Pro Tools. And then the final thing I love, this is like a very big kind of philosophical thing, is really, it feels very much like this is an evolution of the Ableton Live world. It feels like a very clear continuation of the thinking, the philosophies of the team at Ableton. It doesn't feel like Ableton are trying to make it like Pro Tools. It doesn't feel like they're trying to make it like Logic. One thing that's kind of sucks a bit is when you feel like all of your workstations just kind of merging into the same thing. One of the reasons that I actually like jumping between workstations, I primarily jump between Pro Tools and Live, is I think very, very differently in each one, and I actually choose strategically which one I'm using at whichever point of a project based on the result that I'm trying to get out of myself. We can unpack that in another video if you want. Just again, drop a note below. Let me know if you want me to make a video on why I would use these different workstations in different contexts. But again, it just comes back to the fact that that fundamental essence of liveness that makes it great has been preserved. I feel like the functionality has really been enhanced, and actually this has me really excited to try recording in some different ways, try comping in some different ways, try a few different techniques and methods just to speed up the flow and really to access some different creative things that I might have actually avoided before because they would have been a bit too clunky to do in live, and that is high praise indeed. Okay, so in closing, this is the first little foray I've had into the Live 11 beta. I really love it so far. All the features I've seen demonstrated look absolutely brilliant. Please drop a comment if there are specific things you'd like to see me explore. I'll see if I can make that happen. As mentioned at the start of the stream, you're very welcome to drop in on my Twitch channel anytime, twitch.tv/here'sdamien. I stream 3 times a week, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have about music production. You might know about my network, the Complete Producer Network, which is a wonderful online community where people are just very supportive and friendly in helping each other grow, both as music creators and as people who get their music out into the world. Link to that is below. I want to say thanks again to Will Hatton for the drums. I'd like to say thanks to to the Ableton team for putting me on the beta, and thank you to you for watching. So, please subscribe, jump in on the next video, and we'll see you there. Bye.